When I tell people that mental illness should be treated more severely, more like the way we treat physical illness and disabilities, what do you think they say? Well, for starters, they tell me I'm crazy, that I'm overreacting, because surely I don't think mental illnesses are as problematic as cancer and broken bones. Well, did you know that the leading cause of death among 15 to 24-year-olds is suicide? Or that depression is on par with smoking as a predictor of early death? Did you know that a prediction has been made that by 2020, mental disorders will be the second leading cause of disability and premature death in the world? Second only to heart disease. Now to me, this doesn't seem like something you brush off, something you get to say doesn't matter, because at this point, I'm pretty sure it does. Mental illnesses affect more than 20% of all Canadians. That is equivalent to more than 7 million people. In the US, 26.2% of people are estimated to suffer from a mental disorder. That is almost 84 million Americans. Between our two countries, that's about 91 million people, in just two first world countries with little turmoil. You may be thinking that that's a lot of numbers, and it may not convince you that mental illness deserves to be considered with more severity. Contrary to many people's beliefs, depression is not just sadness. Anxiety is not just nervousness. Bipolar disorder or manic depression is not just mood swings. When you think of sadness, generally you will believe there was a cause. Depression, most of the time, has no cause. Sadness has a cause and a solution you can see, an end in sight, whether it be a tub of ice cream or a funny movie. Sadness feels fixable to you, just like something you have to overcome. And sure, it may be hard, but it's only a step. Depression has none of this. It is not a step or one small obstacle in your way. You may sit down and watch that funny movie, eat a tub of ice cream, and in some cases, depression will fade, but it always comes back. You may be in the middle of the movie or standing in your kitchen washing the last dish before you go to bed. Maybe you drop something and bend to get it, and all of a sudden you're on the floor and you can't get up. It's not because you hit your head or hurt your legs. You can't muster the will to stand. All strength drains from you, and you just sit there. Maybe the tears will fall. Maybe they won't. Let's say you're sitting there, tears falling down your face. You get this overwhelming urge to scream because you feel so alone and helpless. But how can that be? You ask yourself. You have friends and a family, but in that moment, it doesn't matter. All you think is that you're alone and always will be. In times like these, there are no meaning to your tears. You don't know why you feel this way. You don't know when this feeling will go away. All you know is that moment. That is depression. In truth, I am reluctant to label anything as depression or as a mental disorder. Not because I don't think they exist or because I don't think they affect people. My reluctance branches from the fact that though there are basic ways to diagnose mental illnesses, they can be different for everyone. And perhaps their uniqueness is one reason people won't take them seriously. They're so varied, it's hard to meet each demand of every illness. We develop a criteria as a society, and with every person claiming mental illness, we run them through our long lists. Are you constantly depressed? Do you have no friends? Do you cry all the time? Are you always in a state of panic? Do you come from a broken home? The list goes on and on and on. And we constantly add new questions and ideas. And at the end of the list, the give all to end all, are you sure you're actually depressed? And this is perhaps one of the worst things to ask a mentally ill person. Are you sure? Or maybe you're just looking for attention. Believing that mental illness isn't real or severe is, in all honesty, incredibly naive. Just because you aren't suffering, just because it isn't involved in your life, doesn't mean that it's not real or serious. For a person suffering, it's real. For their friends and family, watching them break apart, it's real. The problem is that's all most do. They stand by and watch. Whether it's because they don't believe they can do anything or because they think it will pass. When? I don't know. Soon? Eventually? Ever? Maybe. Not everyone gets better on their own, and telling them to snap out of it won't help. Telling them to try harder or just get better already won't help either. If someone's bleeding, wouldn't you help them? I know you might roll your eyes, because the common analogy comparing mental illness to physical injury is the infamous, if someone was shot, would you tell them to just get over it? I understand that getting shot isn't necessarily a good analogy to mental disorders, but in many ways it is like bleeding. It doesn't always stop and you feel yourself draining away, parts of yourself slipping from your fingers. Of course, not every cut is lethal, similar to every mental illness. Eventually the wound will scab, but there are those not knowing any better that will pick and pick at it until it starts to bleed again. People need help. They need to not have to justify everything. As mental illness becomes more prevalent in today's society, we have to stop disregarding it. We have to start getting help to those that need it. 90% of people affected by mental illness do not seek help. And treating people like their disorder doesn't count just because you can't necessarily see it is unfair. People will heal broken bones. They will recover from the cold and the flu. But not everyone can come back from a mental illness. Not everyone suffering from depression will choose to live another day. More than 1 million people commit suicide every year in 20 million attempts. It is estimated that one person successfully commits suicide every 40 seconds. Among today's teenagers and young adults, depression and anxiety spread like wildfire. At this point, they should be granted the privileges of other illnesses. Mental disorders should not have to be justified every time. They're not laziness or sadness. They are real and deserve to be treated as such. Our world is made up of people numb and deaf, those that refuse to listen or accept the truth. But amid the thousands we will stand, here to help and fight for the people suffering. Though they may not understand, we are here, and we are listening.